Crusades, they conquered all those holy cities. They killed a lot of people. So what you're saying is that that information is wrong. Is that what you're saying? Did I understand right?
Yes. What I'm saying basically is Muslims, they never kill non-civilians. We have rules. Yeah, non-civilians. We have rules for war. If we're going for war, we have rules as Muslims. First, we never fight inside the city. If I'm going for war as a Muslim with the army, I have to fight away from the main city. So none of the civilians can be affected. That's number one. Number two, I cannot kill women, children, or elders. Three, I cannot kill civilians. Four, I cannot destroy any church or synagogue or
Yeah.
any place for worship. I
No.
cannot cut a tree. I cannot destroy houses, and so on.
See.
But if someone like in the army, like a soldier, is holding a gun against me, of course I will have to defend myself in that case. So definitely in the case of any killing that happened, it would be against soldiers, not against civilians, not against people who preach, for example, for a certain religion and so on. So yeah, I hope that made sense.
Yeah. Não, é que just hang on a second. Eu não sei como colocar isso aqui em mudo. Eu não vou agora. Já falei. Quantas vezes eu tenho que falar? Tu vai berrar mais alto. Sorry, you there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now from saying that Muslims don't kill another soul, now you're saying that you would kill someone with a weapon, right? And in that case,
Yeah.
they didn't have rifles, okay? And at that time, they didn't have rifles, so it had to be a sword. So are you saying that to conquer those towns, Muslims only killed fighters uh, that held swords? Is that
Yes.
what you're saying? So
Yes.
if there was a woman holding a sword, they kill it, or you meant to say only women without a sword?
Yeah. So woman holding a sword is part of the army, and in that case, she's not a civilian; she is a soldier. And killing, by the way, it even have like rules. Killing is supposed to be in the sense of when fighting, but when a soldier surrender, if you're a soldier and you surrendered, I cannot kill you in that case. I cannot kill you by rules.
Okay.
If you surrender, I cannot go ahead and kill. No, I have to take you as hostage. And when I take you as hostages, you can look at the hostages in Gaza, for example, the Israeli hostages in Gaza. They are being treated by the rules of Islam. The rules of Islam tells you what you cannot torture them, you cannot curse them. You have to give them the rights. They have to eat good. They have to have their exercise. They have to communicate with their families and so on. So there are certain rules, and that's why one of the French what they call it like reporters who was taken as hostage in Somalia, she converted to Islam when she saw that the treatment of Islam. Because by rules in Islam, when you're taken as a hostage, no one can harm you, no one can do you any bad. You have to stay as healthy and as safe as possible. You get all your rights until you leave. And they took her as a hostage not because of her, but because of political reason until they got their demand, and then she went freely. But she converted to Islam when she reached France, and that was shocking to the entire world. Like how would you do that? And then she explained further that she found the treatment I'm using, and the rules of Islam made sense to her. So yeah,
Okay.
in Islam we don't kill civilians, we don't kill soldiers in case they surrender, we don't kill any women or children, we don't cut trees. We have rules for wars, and that's the main difference. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, do you agree with Hezbollah? Is that your side of the your opinion that should have a group that will fight the Jews? What is your opinion about that?
Now, Hezbollah, when you talk about Hezbollah, is, you know that Hezbollah is backed by Iran, right?
Right.
Right. And I don't want this conversation to go political because we're
Oh
speaking
no,
about
no, I'm
faith
not.
here.
No, no,
Yeah.
I'm not talking political.
But
It's just I want to know based on religion why they do that. If they are Muslims, why they're doing that? You know, they're still
right.
um, uh, cutting hands. They're still um, 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 chopping women's um, organs. You know, they're doing things that they say that is their culture, but I wonder if it's based on religion.
Right. Now, as I said, I don't want this to go political, but I'm going to explain my stance here. I don't stand
Okay.
with Hezbollah at all because
Okay.
Hezbollah is backed by Iran. And Iran,
Okay.
they are claiming to be Muslims, but they are the minority who call themselves the Shia. You know what is the Shia? The literal translation for the Shia is the group. So we are right
Okay.
now a group, a Shia in this event. That's the literal translation in Arabic.
Okay.
So they group themselves and they have their own rules. They believe that the leader of Iran, Khamenei, is like a holy man. And whatever he say is holy. And we don't agree with them on that as Muslims. We call ourselves the majority or the mainstream. We call ourselves what? The Sunnah. Which means the Sunnah. The Sunnah are the followers of the Sunni, sorry, the followers of the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad. So his way is called the Sunnah, and the followers of that way are called the Sunni. So this is the majority of the Muslims. Right? We follow the way of the
Hmm.
Prophet Muhammad. Now, Iran, they have their own agenda, they have their own rulings, they have their own kind of hierarchy. In Islam, there is no hierarchy. We don't see that there is someone between us and God. So if you pray to God as a Muslim, you can pray to God anywhere, anytime. However, in Iran, it's kind of different. There is a hierarchy. You have to go through people to reach to God. When you call upon someone, when you want to pray, you don't pray to God, you pray to Ali, for example. You say, Ya Ali, Ya oh Ali. So we don't agree with that at all as Muslims.
Hmm.
So what
Hmm.
Hezbollah is doing, and again, I don't want this to go political, but Hezbollah, what they are doing, I don't agree with it.
Okay.
They are
Okay.
fighting Israel, but they are not fighting Israel because they are Muslims. They are fighting Israel because they want to take their place. If you go
Okay.
back into history, you would see that before the 1948, before Israel was established, right? Um, the main plan was when the Ottoman Empire fell down. The main plan was if for the West I'm talking, if they want to control the Middle East, the countries in the Middle East, they have to separate them, and they have to put someone there who can keep this mission up, who can keep the separation and keep the chaos happening in the Middle East. Because if these countries, imagine all these countries, they speak Arabic, they believe in the same faith, they are Muslims. If they united, if they have an agreement between them, it's going to be a superpower again. Because the Ottoman Empire used to be a huge superpower, and when it
Hmm.
got destroyed, it was a huge empire for 800 years. So when it was destroyed
Hmm.
in the First World War, they don't want this power to go back again. So they have to keep the people there always in chaos, always in a problems. They have to create problems between Egypt and Sudan, between Syria and Iraq, between Palestine and Jordan, between whatever, like Lebanon and Palestine, between Libya and Algeria, between Algeria and Morocco. They have to keep this war happening all the time, because if they are in agreement, they go into unite. It's not difficult for them because they speak the same language, they have the same faith, right? So who was going to take that job? Who was going to keep that chaos happening? Israel. But guess who want that? Who want to take that job? Iran. Iran doesn't want Israel to be there. They want to take Israel job. They want to be the Israel in the Middle East. So that's why they hate Israel, not because they're Muslims. Is that clear?
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And as
So
far as what Iran does with their population, like killing gays and repress women, suppress their rights, you don't agree with that at all, right?
not at all, not at all.
It's not a
I'm with
Muslim thing.
the.
It's a country. It's a cultural thing, right? It's what they do in their
y-
country.
You have to go back to the source every time you hear about something about Islam. You have to go back to the source. The source of Islam is the Sharia law. Is the Sharia law is two books or two main sources. Is the Quran, which is the holy book. We believe is the word of Allah, the literal word of God. And then we have the
Okay.
hadith. The hadith are the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, what he said, what he done during his life. So
So a real
from
Muslims follow two books, the Quran and the Hadith, right?
yes, yes, the hadith
Okay,
is
and the
multiple
Hadith
books, but
tells you
it's
how
but it's like
to.
you can say one book. Yeah,
Okay, okay, okay. I'm learning. So the Hadith tell you how to treat women. Is that correct?
the hadith and the Quran tells you how to treat women.
Okay. And why do you think that they still need to wear all those coverings, the big dresses, having only the eyes out? And what if they don't want to use that? Is that okay?
Yeah, and so now if you go in the Quran in Surah Al-Nur, chapter Al-Nur, it's called chapter the light. That's the name of it in Arabic, Al-Nur. You will see the ruling of the modest clothing for not only females but also for males. But since we're speaking here about females, I'm going to explain the verse for you. In the verse it says, a woman can show her face and her hands. And show her face and her hands. And that's called the hijab, which is covering her body. Covering her body with a non-revealing cloth.
Okay.
Not like tight clothes. If she covered her entire body with a tight clothes, that's not like the point. The point here
I
is you
understand.
can wear whatever you want as long as it's not revealing. And what you
All
can
right.
show from your body is the hands and the face. And that's the modest code for the female. The males also have a modest code, but let's talk about the female in this case. She can show show her hair, for example, or she can not wear hijab, let's say, in front of certain people. For example, her father, her mother, her siblings, her cousins. Not sorry, not her cousins. The sons of her
Immediate family.
siblings.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah,
I got you.
like her family.
Immediate family.
And
Got you. Got
Yeah,
you.
nephews.
in another verse it says, for the women who are not whose intention is not to marry, they don't want to marry, they can take off their hijab. They can take off their hijab. However, they cannot put like makeup and they cannot like make themselves what they say like look
Like a Western.
Attractive?
like a sex, yeah, like show more of their beauty,
Okay.
like that. They can leave their hair outside, no worries. But if they are not intended to marry, and it says
Okay.
if they cover,
But
it's
what
much better.
what
For
is
them.
really
Yeah.
what if it's really hot outside and they want to use just a regular shirt? They want to expose their arms or maybe the shoulder. I mean, they're still covering their breasts. I mean, they're not showing anything. They still want to dress a little bit lighter. Um, what is the punishment for that?
Yeah. So there is no punishment for that. There is no punishment for a woman revealing her body. You would find Muslim women revealing their, for example, I'm not going to say revealing, but they're not wearing hijab, a proper hijab. They are, for example, leaving their hair out. Maybe they're wearing trousers. Maybe they're wearing like a shirt or something like that. There is no punishment for that. This is up to the woman, literally, because what's the five pillars in Islam? Five pillars are the main pillars for any Muslims to follow. First pillar is the Shahada. A Muslim have to have within himself, believe within him or herself, believe in one God, and to believe in the prophets, including Muhammad, Jesus, Moses, Abraham, Noah, peace be upon them all, right? So this is the first pillar. Second pillar is to pray. Third pillar is to fast. Fourth pillar is to give charity for the ones in need. And fifth one is to do pilgrimage, Hajj, go to Mecca once in a
Okay.
lifetime, if they can. So these are the five pillars, doesn't include the hijab. Why women wear the hijab in Islam? Because they love their creator, they love their God. No one is pushing women in Islam to wear hijab. I have one
So
of
you
my sisters
guarantee
here,
me,
Muslim sister. She's from Ireland. I hope she attend today's event. Yeah, she loves to wear hijab. No one is, even though some people in Ireland, she lives, I think, in the UK, in England. Some people, they could see her with the hijab and they insult her or they talk bad about her or something like that. But she won't wear the hijab. Why? Because she love her creator, she love her God, she love to follow the commandment of
so
God.
if she
This
if
is the
she
way of
wants
the
to
prophets.
if she wants to wear that is because she love her God. But what if she doesn't? Does that mean that she does not love her
No
God?
punishment for that. No, no, no punishment
No,
for
no,
that. It's
no.
I
okay.
think
I
it
got.
depends
There's
on
no
where you
punishment.
are.
Yeah, my next question exactly was going to be that. So you guarantee me that if a woman go to a Muslim country and she's wearing short sleeve shirt and maybe shorts, maybe let's say to the knees. I'm not talking about all the way to the above
Culture is not religion.
the thigh. Okay, I'm talking about just covering her genitals and her breasts. Is
Yes.
she gonna get ashamed for it? I mean, is she gonna be called off? She can walk on the street and no problem.
Yeah, look, purple. There is something here being said by my brother right now. I just heard
Okay.
it. He said culture is not religion. And this is true. The culture is different than the religion. If you want to look at in the religion, there is no punishment for not covering yourself, not following the modest code. There is no punishment for that. Then you have to go by the standard of the society, right? And this is where we go to the culture. For example, in the culture of,
That was not my
let's,
question. I said a Muslim country. I did not say a
yeah, a Muslim
country that had
country,
the
a
culture.
Muslim country. Look,
Yeah,
a
but
Muslim country,
it's not
right?
in the law.
In Islam,
Yeah.
in Islam, for example, let's talk about Indonesia, right? The biggest Muslim country. If you go to Indonesia, Islam doesn't have punishment for a woman who want to wear, for example, as you mentioned, like covering herself, but she's not wearing hijab, right?
What about
Muslim or
Afghanistan?
non-Muslim,
That's
doesn't
a Muslim
matter.
country.
She can wear whatever she wants as long as she's not revealing
Sometimes
her
culture
her
wins.
genitalia.
You guarantee that
How
to me. Promise that nothing's gonna happen to her. No one's gonna call her
No, listen to
names.
my full answer, right? Listen to my full answer. However, that depends on the culture itself. In Indonesia, I don't know what the Indonesian culture is like. Maybe in Indonesia, it's a shame for a woman to wear shorts. I don't know, right? For example, if you go to Bosnia, Bosnia is a Muslim country, but a woman there can wear shorts because hey, it's in Europe, right? And they're got used to women walking with shorts, for example, right? It's different than Indonesia, even though it's the same Muslim countries. Do you
Okay.
understand what I'm trying to say?
No, I understand. You're talking about I understand the culture. Okay, I do
Yeah.
understand the culture. What I'm trying to get at, if what if that culture is based on the religion, isn't it?
Their religion doesn't have a punishment. I mentioned this point maybe 3 times until now.
No, no,
Their
no.
religion
Forget about
doesn't have a
punishment. I'm not
punishment
saying the word
for a
punishment
woman.
anymore. I understood your
What is
answer,
it?
and I understand there's no punishment. I got it. Calling outside someone names is not a punishment. It's an opinion. Okay. So
Pulling outside,
women,
like
when
what do
they
you mean?
walk, okay, I'm gonna tell you about a documentary that I watched a few years ago that women they when they walk through in London in Muslim areas, they get called names. Okay, they're shamed because they're using Western clothing. And that's why
Yeah,
I'm here to ask you if that is true or not.
Purple,
Is that a lie?
girlfriend, ask me where I live.
Right?
Ask me where I live.
Okay, where do you live?
Tell them where you live.
I live in London.
Okay.
And what you
Okay,
talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. I never hear of it. Over by 17 years I'm living here, and I never hear of it.
that's great. So the documentary was lying then.
Yeah.
That's probably what
Purple
it was.
Dolphin, Purple Dolphin. Let me tell you experience I've had. Back in Northern Ireland, we wanted to build a mosque, yeah? And the mosque was going to be built in the countryside. It wasn't even accessible for me. There was no bus route towards it. You needed a car just to get to it. What we had was a politician. He decided to make a documentary. He decided to go around and tell the people of Ireland, these Muslims, they're going to build this mosque, they're going to call Hazard from the street, this is what they believe, this is going to bring terrorism, blah, blah, blah. He went into the estate, he went into my estate, and he told people where I live that this is what us Muslims are doing. What happened next is that men turned up with guns and balaclavas to our houses to get us out, to smash our windows and to intimidate us because of what this politician done, because of the documentary and the lies he told the people. This is what happens.
Okay. No,
For
I
a
believe.
mosque that is going to be built in the countryside, it wasn't going to be built, the aren't going to be called out to annoy anybody. And even if it
No,
was, what's wrong with that?
I
So
I
what you get
true.
in, what you have in the UK, you have groups like UKIP, like EDL, that go around telling lies and exaggerating and scaremongering. Look, Muslims in Britain live alongside everybody. We're fully integrated. Our recent mayor of London was a Muslim. We have Muslim politicians, Muslim teachers. We're very much a part of society. We're not separate. We're not strange. We're not something different. I'm a
Okay.
working professional. I work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the other people they understand your culture, right? So they won't say anything. But my question was this: you guarantee me that if a woman walk on a Muslim community, she's not going to be called of anything, and she's going to be safe. She's going to be okay walking with the shorts and shorts and stuff.
100% she's going to be safe. I live in London and I have Muslims around me and I'm very close to Muslim communities. And too many people everybody's walking around safe. But you know who is not safe sometimes? Sometimes I am not safe. It happened when I walked across the road and a zebra crossing, somebody tried to run me down. I've had I've had people shout abuse at me. I've had stones thrown at me
Why? Why they would do
because
that?
I'm a Muslim, because I wear hijab. Because they're offended because I'm white and I'm wearing hijab, like they take me like traitor. I get more abuse than a
And
Pakistani or an Arab would, or a black person would, wearing the hijab.
I see. And there's no
Huh?
retaliation to that? Because your community retaliates
No, they don't.
at all.
So, what they gonna do? They're there in the street when it happens. What they gonna do?
I don't know. I'm just asking. I'm not them. That's why I'm
Why do you
asking.
think why do you think they retaliate? Why did you come to that assumption? Why did you ask that?
Because of the
Do
documentary
you,
that I
do
told
you,
you.
do, the documentary, I don't know what you watched, but I can tell you I've lived in London for 17 years and I've never heard of what
But
you're talking about,
you
not
stay
once.
there, your
Okay.
country.
Yeah?
It's very easy. If you go on YouTube and just
Yeah?
type
Oh my God.
women being ashamed by Muslims, and you see several places in the world where women are dressing regular clothing,
Uh-huh.
showing arms and maybe shorts, and well,
Yeah.
anyway, not wearing what people
I
want them
have,
to
I
wear,
have, I
and
have
they're
to
called
look it
out
up.
like, "What are you doing here? You
Which
gotta
one of these
just
sounds
get
better?
out of here." That kind of stuff. I'm not talking
Uh,
about shaming them or
This
throwing
song,
rocks or
yeah.
trying to ruin a car.
That
I'm
Or,
just saying
depends.
that
You
you're
know
shaming
that
them.
that
for
depends to the
example, like what
person
happened to
who's
me. Yeah,
reaction.
okay. Like for example,
Yeah,
for the tax I've
yeah,
had, yes.
It's not the
yeah. They
religion.
kind
Never
of
heard of
text.
it. I'll have to look it up
Oh,
and
oh,
find out about it,
just
but
look
I've
it on
never heard of it.
YouTube. Just look on
Nothing
YouTube. You're
around
gonna
it.
see
Yeah.
hundreds. Yeah, you're gonna see
Hundreds.
But
hundreds.
also, Purple, you have to understand one thing when
Huh.
we started conversating. I told you that there is a difference between the individuals and the religion. When we want to speak
I
about the
understand that.
religion, we go back to the
I, I,
source. And when
I
we go to
understand
the
that.
Quran and the Hadith,
Hmm.
No,
you see
I,
that
I,
this type of acting, shaming people, is wrong, because it says that God doesn't look at how, like our physical bodies. God
right.
look at what's within us. And that's in the
And not
Quran.
just that,
Allah لا ينظر
there's
إلى
actually
إن الله ينظر إلى ما في قلوبكم. So for people who are shaming other people because what they look like or what they wear, I myself stand against that because
not just that.
this act is based on the people, not based on the
Mm.
origin of the source
Mhm.
of the Islam.
Okay. I understand.
Actually,
Can I
not
ask you
just
some
on
really
top
hard
of
questions
just
right now?
let me just add on top of that, we actually have an eye in the
Sure.
Quran that calls out Muslim people for even thinking anything derogatory about a woman in this fashion. It's not acceptable and it's not allowed. You're not allowed to accuse a woman of any such thing. You're not allowed to say call her a slut. You're not allowed to call her a whore. This is against Islamic teachers, and there's an ayah in the Quran to this effect. It's not acceptable. And as far as the hijab, yes, we're expected to dress modestly. Before women were told to dress modestly in such a way so they can be honoured and respected, the hijab, the men were told first to lower their gaze and to respect their own eyes before it was even incumbent upon women. The responsibility
Okay.
was first put on to behave themselves.
Let me ask you before I forget. So, are you saying that you gotta wear that way to be respectful? So, if you don't wear that way, you're not being respectful.
It's not that.
This is about
It's
logic.
this is for two reasons. First of all, the hijab is for two reasons. First of all, so you can be identified as a Muslim, so people know you're a Muslim. Second of all, yes, it's for modesty. But no, you do not need to wear the hijab to be respected. This isn't the case. I know many Muslim sisters, but even people who've been my teachers, they didn't wear hijab. Nobody said boo to them, and they're going to the mosque, and they're the teachers. They wear the hijab when they're in the mosque, and when they're out, they're not wearing it. And they say boo to them. This is not what we're like as a community. Hijab, first of all, is not just coming within the Quran, it's also coming in the Old Testament and the New Testament. This is not something new.
Yes.
This is something that was all towards the world. Up to even as recently as
You
100
took it
years
out.
ago, all Europe was wearing the hijab. My granny, she didn't call it hijab, they call it scarf. My granny, she used to wear the scarf going to church. And then before, over time, as it become the culture, they don't start wearing it. It slipped down neck. She just wear the scarf around the neck.
Yeah. I'm gonna take your word that women are not being shamed if they don't use the hijab in
I
the
know.
Muslim communities. I'm
I
gonna
know.
take your word, but it's
I know
way
for a
different than
fact.
what I see on YouTube. And you can
I don't know what you see on
look it
YouTube.
up.
No,
I
no,
could,
she-
I
Sounds
could
like
look
you're
it up.
talking about the
explains.
ideals
This
of Islam
depends
and
to
not the
the
actual
individual.
reality for
So
some
he
people.
reacts to you. It's
Mary,
not about-
I live in London. I am a Muslim living in London. I know the community.
That's fine.
Not just that, I'm a reader.
I'm not
so
talking
I
about
know
London.
I
I'm
know
not talking about
I know-
London. I'm talking
I
about
know-
Islam.
This guy, he's talking about London. And I know.
No, I
know
use
the
that
world.
one as
I
an
have,
example.
I have many of my friends.
Sure, and you can talk
Are
over me,
Muslim?
and
and
that's
many
fine.
are
If that,
non-Muslim. But do you want to tell me about my experience and how I live?
I do not want to tell you that at all. Not even.
You're not
Take it from
doubting
the-
your experience. I'm not doubting your experience. I'm doubting that a women walking on Muslims community, they were not going to be called off if they're not using the hijab. That's what I'm
So
doubting.
we answer
Because
it's a
I
culture
see,
and
because I see
individual.
several
It's not a
videos
religion.
that show
I have-
different. So
I have
I
to
doubt
watch
that
these
all
shows.
those videos are
Names.
made it up.
I have
Yeah, it's a
I have to
cultural
watch
thing.
these shows. I have to watch these
Cultural
shows because I've
things
never
are
heard of
really
it.
difficult.
Maybe
You have to
it's,
figure out where
You-
the
you
line
have
is.
any-
it's my race is like this, but I've never heard of it. I have to watch it to see it myself.
Purple. Purple.
Mhm.
Do you have any certain? Do you believe in certain religion?
It makes no difference if I believe on your
I'm
religion.
just
I
asking
think
you
it's
a question.
you're just curious.
I'm just curious. Yeah.
Okay. No, I don't have any religion. I don't believe in religion.
Okay.
No.
So
And I'll
you're-
tell you
you're like-
one more reason why. I'll tell you one more reason why with another question, which is you said is about people do things that are against their religion. So we've seen, for example, Catholic priests that they've been abusing children. So do you say that the Catholic is bad, or you only say that only those 3,000 Catholic priests were bad? What is your defense on
3,000.
on that?
Because
I
that's
wouldn't,
not part
I
of the
wouldn't
religion.
defend, I wouldn't
Yeah.
defend, I wouldn't defend
understand.
Catholic priests because me myself, I see that the Bible is corrupted as a Muslim. Otherwise, I would be following the Bible if I see it
The
complete.
Bible doesn't
and
say
perfect.
that it's okay for priests to do what they did. That's not part of the religion. I think the problem
part of
comes
the
in
religion.
when,
Yeah.
excuse me,
You-
I think the
you-
problem comes
you-
in,
Yeah.
it, Is this a place where we can talk, or is this a place where
No,
we
go
all get
ahead.
Yeah,
talked
but
over?
you interrupted
No.
me, by the way, when I was speaking.
No.
I didn't continue my point. You interrupted me when I said
I'm very
I was
sorry,
speaking
I
about
thought
the
you were
priest.
finished.
Right? No, I
No,
wasn't
he didn't.
finished. But yeah, go ahead. You can speak if you want. Yes.
Religion, the acts of the priests are not based in the religion. There's nothing in the Bible that says that the priests should go harm people. The problem is, it's the implementation of the religion. It's the way that the religion is lived. And the religion is lived in such a way that it is harmful to some people. And so what we need to do is not blame it on culture and not blame it on individuals, but investigate how religion causes people to interpret writings in various books and the things that people say, and how they use religion as a defense, which happens in, as far as I understand, every religion. So it's not about the book. It's not about the Quran and the Hadith and the Bible. It's not about that. It's about the people who are interpreting that, the things that they're doing because of what they're reading.
Well,
Now,
as far
when you
as
say
the
that
That's
point,
not necessarily
Mary,
accurate, Mary.
yeah, when you say
That's
that
not
point,
accurate.
Mary, you're basing your point based on claimed fact that been said by Purple here, that there are many people, many Muslims, as he said, he watched videos on YouTube, and he have seen Muslims shaming women who are not dressing like their culture. Now,
And
that
using
itself, we don't have statistics for that. We don't have how many of Muslims are doing that,
But
because
they're
I am
using
sure
their religion.
them. Yeah, wait. We don't know how many of Muslims are doing that, right? If we say the majority of Muslims, like 90%, they don't do that. But few YouTube videos show that a minority, like 5% of Muslims, which is a huge number as well, they've been doing that. We cannot just say it's about the interpretation of the verses of the Quran, because the Quran clearly tells you that's wrong. You cannot shame people. You cannot go around and tell people they are wrong because of what they look like. Clearly. But when we speak about the Bible, for example, I have seen verses in the Bible, for example, that tells you that blessed is the one who smash a kid head upon the rock. Now, what is that verse? What is the interpretation of that verse going to be? It's this clear verse that tells you if you smash a kid against the rock, then you're blessed. Now, teachings like that are not in the Quran, but I'm not here to defend any Christian priest. But since you brought it up, what they are doing to the kids, I cannot defend them. But as I said, I don't see the Bible to be perfect. Otherwise, I would be following it. I see the Quran to be perfect, and I'm willing to stand and defend it anytime, any day. But when we speak about the Bible, I can tell you all the flaws in it and why I'm not following it. Want to say something, Shay?
Wanted to get to her, but it's basically people's understanding of it. Or people will read something and they would understand it, and then teach it to people. Sometimes they don't have the true understanding or knowledge of what was being written, which leads to messed up religions or false teachings. So it's just blaming it on religion, and it's really an individual's interpretation of the writing.
Yeah,
Can I say something?
when we speak about the Muslims, for example, when they interpret some verses or the Quran in general, the majority of the Muslims, 99% of the Muslims, they are peaceful. They are living in peace. What you see on television basically are the minority, like ISIS, for example. ISIS, by the way, the majority of Muslims, they don't see ISIS to be Muslims. What you talked about the Iran, I told you the issue about the Shia and why we don't see them be followers of Islam. When you see, for example, I don't know, any other acts based on Islam, the majority of Muslims are living in peace, and probably they are like providing a lot for this earth and for the societies around the earth. But that you don't see on television because the propaganda is against Islam.
I understand. Let me just finish my point. When I ask you about the priests, the Catholic priests, I want to hear exactly what I heard from you. Is that those 3,000 priests are not the average Catholic, right? That's what people say. And what I'm trying to say that 3,000 is a lot. It's not. I'm not talking about one or two or three. When you're talking about 3,000, there's a way that they do things, and they allow that to happen, and they keep on allowing that to happen. Priests abusing children. So when you say it's not the religion, you got to really think about how much can I blame the religion or not. So if it was one or two or three or five, okay, it's not the religion. It's I mean, those are just bad apples. When you get to 3,000, you start to wonder, maybe the way that they do things is wrong. Maybe what they are doing is wrong. Now, let me just
He answered you actually.
let me just tell. No, I
Maybe
think
a
you're not getting.
Catholic can come in here and answer.
No,
I
no, he
said
did.
when you speak about
No, no, I'm not
Christianity, I
asking you.
blame the religion. I blame the religion. I blame the Bible when you speak about Christianity because I don't see it completely.
Yeah, but you don't blame
Understand what I'm saying?
the Quran when Muslims
Give me the
they do
statistics
things as a,
for the Muslims that you don't agree with.
statistics. Okay, I'm gonna give you some statistics now. I just opened up the YouTube and I typed
Yes.
women shamed by Muslims. Okay, so if you type in our country, wherever you are, you go on YouTube, you type this. This is what you're gonna see.
Yes.
Hina, which is a
Find
lady,
anything on YouTube.
she is giving
I don't
her
know.
experiences,
An actor.
Islam and shaming women.
Pick up
Okay.
things and
Hey, excuse me. Excuse me.
just talking to that.
Oh,
Yeah, you can talk.
I
You
know
can
you.
talk.
You're
No,
talking
I'm
over me.
talk-
Can you wait for me to finish? Please. Okay. So, and then there is another one. Muslims call Christians stupid, which is not related. My bad. Muslim women, oh, not related. British woman harassed by Muslims for wearing regular clothes. Another one is Muslim women are lucky to be bitten. And then
Are looking to be what?
Audi Frank, women shame and honor in the Muslim world. So those are several videos that show what I'm talking
Do you
about.
understand
That's
what
the
the
reason.
word statistics means? I'm sure you're a smart person and understand the word
I don't have a
statistics.
number, but it's showing there's not one or two. It's showing
Then
there's
what we're
hundreds of
talking about?
thousands.
Hundreds of
It's not
thousands
one or
of
two.
views, not the people harassing the woman.
No,
How
no,
many
no.
person in the video?
When you
60,
say something
5
that
people?
it's already on YouTube, it did not happen one time. When you say several videos, different people, it did not happen only 3 times.
How many Muslims are on the world?
How many times did it happen?
Well, billions, okay?
Oh, okay.
Okay, then a few videos on YouTube. That's how much you're gonna be, like 0.5%. That's even too much for this.
Остальные большой авиации будут заняты.
Okay,
You didn't
so,
find my story on it. For all the events that happened to me, you didn't find my story on it.
no, so here's the thing. I was just trying to show you that there are Muslims doing that.
Of course,
And
yeah, but how?
your
how
response
much
is that
statistics?
is
That's the
irrelevant.
question.
And I'm saying
the
that
qu-
it is relevant
Yeah.
because it based on the religion says that women
No, no,
should
no, 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 no.
dress
It's not based
this
on the
way.
religion because we established
there's
that.
no
We established
compulsion
that
in
from the
religion.
Quran and the Hadith. This act is wrong. I, as a Muslim, I condemn
no.
that type of act. But when you say
You-
it's a lot
you
of people
said-
doing this, I say how many percent of Muslims are doing this? And you're telling
me
me
step
few
back.
people on YouTube, right?
Let me
Few
step
people on
let me
YouTube,
step
they
back
could
for a
be
second.
0.1% of Muslims.
When you say that your Quran say that women should dress respectful, if they don't, they're being disrespectful. That's all about
No,
No,
logic.
no, no, no.
Is-
It
is-
doesn't
no,
say
no.
that. No, no, no.
Doesn't
Not
say
at all.
that.
With respect.
Modest.
Not
No.
at all.
If I call you to a party to my
it-
house and I say, please dress
Yeah.
respectfully with long sleeves, long pants, and a jihad.
Uh-huh. A what?
Hijab. No, how do you say that? Hijab.
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 Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, and you don't dress that way. So I told you to come respectfully that way, and you didn't.
Right.
So are you
Right.
being
Modest.
disrespectful?
So you're being.
It's
No,
not
you're not.
shaming your choice.
But
You know,
See?
it's too early for you to interpret the Quran. First of all, you read it. Second of all, you read the tafsir, the interpretation. Third of all, you go through the hadith. You have a wrong way
No,
to
I'm-
interpret the Quran.
I'm just going
However,
by
I'm
what
going
you
to
told
make it
me.
easy
What
for
do you think? What
The
do you think?
Quran doesn't
What do you
say
think is?
if a woman wears the hijab, she is respectful. That doesn't say
You told me
in
that a
the
few minutes
Quran.
ago. You told me
Okay,
that.
this,
no,
this,
I'm getting
this,
from you.
this is
The
me, this
Quran
is the result,
says
it's about
the-
modesty. Yeah.
No,
What do you think is happening in
clearly
France?
say asking the Muslim women to cover themselves with like a cloth that and only show their face and their hands. They can take the hijab off to their immediate family, as you mentioned. And then if they are not intending to marry, they can take off their hijab as well, but they cannot put makeup. That's what I explained to you earlier. It doesn't say if you wear the hijab you're respectful. It doesn't say that at all.
Okay.
That's not even
So I
the
think I
way that God
misunderstood.
speaks.
So if a woman wants to wear makeup and short sleeve and short pants and go into a Muslim community, it's fine. No one's gonna say anything. Is that what you're saying?
In fact,
my
that's exactly,
depends,
that's exactly
right?
what happens.
Say something.
Depends.
This-
It depends on the
Someone
culture
wants to say
because the
something
five
about
pillars
your hair,
of
about
Islam
your clothes.
doesn't contain hijab. The five pillars of Islam doesn't contain hijab. So you would see a lot of Muslim women doesn't wear hijab, and it's fine. It's fine. They are not being punished by for that. It's between them and their God. We don't judge in Islam. This is not something up to us. This is something up to God. However, if you go to a country where the culture demand you to cover yourself and you don't cover yourself, that's going to be a different issue. For example, for example, let's say
And that culture is not based on religion, right? It's not based on
there is a
Muslim
country
religion.
in Asia. It's like a Buddhist country. It says like it's the cleanest country on earth. I forgot the name of it. A small country with a small
Singapore.
population.
Burma?
Huh?
Maybe Burma? Maybe Burma?
Not Burma. Not Burma.
Mm,
Not Singapore.
Myanmar?
Not Myanmar.
Myanmar.
I forgot the name of it. It's like we have clean air, no cars, no nothing. This
Okay.
country is a Buddhist country, and they cover themselves from like shoulder to toe. If you go there and you wear like shorts and I don't know, like non-modest clothes, like even modest, but like more modest according to Western culture, you will be ashamed over there
Mm-hmm.
because it's not about religion anymore. It's about the culture. It's about the culture. A Muslim woman, if she traveled to the United States, for example, I'm assuming you're from there, maybe, I don't know.
Yes.
If a Muslim woman traveled to the United States wearing hijab, she's going to be ashamed for that.
No.
Because
Yes.
Not in the U.S.
not now
Yes.
maybe, or
Yes,
not
yes.
everywhere,
Yes,
but in
the
certain
US.
places,
I live
yes.
in the US.
If she go to a place, for example, in the South, right? If she go to the South wearing hijab, and especially if she's black Muslim, man, she's going to be so ashamed. Because of what? Because of the culture there. They're gonna look at her like she's an alien.
Yeah, and usually because of other religions like Christianity that change people's morals, and they do that kind of stuff. Yeah, I give
It's
it
actually-
to that. I give up to that.
Regardless of religion, atheist, Christian, whatever, this is the reality. This is my reality. If I go to big areas that, specifically if it's all white, I'm more likely to get racism and harassment and derogatory terms and all sorts.
I guarantee you that if you go to a place there's a bunch of atheists around, nobody's gonna say he's ashamed to wear a hijab.
No, you're wrong.
Oh,
Guaranteed.
Man,
You're wrong.
I've seen
Because
I've seen the most
majority of it
racist
is-
comments
is-
from
The
atheists.
majority of England is atheist.
What did you say?
They don't believe in God, and this is the.
I said the most racism could be coming from the atheists, right? That's what I experienced at least. Because atheists, what they have in their mind is anyone who believes in a religion is just a dumb person. And
I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist.
Yeah,
And I don't
but
think you're
you're
dumb.
one. You're one,
I don't
right?
think you're
You're
dumb.
one in many.
No,
right?
I'm not. No,
For
I'm not
example.
one. There's one more here. I'm sure.
Yeah, you're one in the ones that I met in my life, and I've got some racist.
Okay,
comments
so
from
add
them.
me to your statistics that.
So this is my
Yeah.
personal experience.
Hmm. So you add me to
And
your
I have seen
statistics
that.
that I don't think that you're dumb. I just think that you're delusional. That's different.
You
Dumb
don't
is someone with the IQ very low. Delusional is someone
you're
that.
already judging a person that you never know anything about them, right? You don't know about me. You don't
No,
know
you
what
told me what you
kind
believe.
of, for example, education that I have, what kind of job that I do, what kind of family that I have,
That
what kind
doesn't
of
matter.
society that I live in.
That
You
doesn't-
just
But you
judge
don't
me
even know
based
the
on my
religion.
belief. You said
Don't
you
really-
believe in
You just-
something, you must
you
be
just did
delusional.
exactly what
That's
I
what you're
said
saying,
atheist.
right?
You can
Yeah.
say that to me. If I don't believe when you think I'm delusional, then I'm gonna ask, why is that?
No, no, I'm not saying that to you. You see, I called you smart earlier. And you see, because of the conversation, I didn't judge you because of what you believe, but you judged me because of what I believe.
No,
Said anyone
you don't
who
understand
believes in
what
something
judge
is delusional.
is. I'm not judging you. I'm just saying that anyone that believes on a talking dead in the sky are just imagining things because no one sees that before. Have you seen it?
That's
No, you've
the
never
point.
seen it.
Exactly.
You
That's
imagine
the
it.
point. You're
just-
prejudging entire societies because of what of their ideologies.
I'm asking you,
He's
have
talking
you heard
ideas,
about
not
voids?
people.
Yeah. I'm
He's
just
talking about
He's
people.
doing
He said
exactly
anyone who
what he
believes that
said.
there is a God in the sky
As an atheist.
is delusional or imaginary. So, like
Sure.
he's judging a whole entire societies, like the majority.
I'm not
of
judging.
people-
It's the definition of the word. You believe in that without any evidence and without even.
That doesn't mean
Um,
you're delusional.
That's not
Maybe,
delusional.
maybe he's the right
Oh.
person. Maybe
You
he
want me to
gets
write
to
it
find the
Delusional
truth.
mean?
You want me to
That's
read the
another
definition of
concept.
delusional to you? Maybe you don't understand what that means.
But maybe, I
You want me
think
to
you just
read it to
added,
you?
you just added
Wait,
the
a person-
option. You
the
said
word for
without
delusion-
evidence. How,
Yeah.
why have you said this without evidence?
Because do you have an evidence?
There's
There's.
many evidences.
Tell me one.
Anecdotal evidence.
You should usually start with a question, but you started with a judgment. But then,
That's it.
since you ask now, yes, there is a proof for that. But before we
Okay.
get into that, a person who believes in a higher power is not necessarily delusional.
Why?
Maybe he's smarter person
Why?
than the people who don't
Why?
believe, right? Why, right? You find it weird because you already have that prejudgment in your brain about people who.
No, I don't.
who-
I
who-
want to
who
get
believe
educated by you.
in a higher
Tell me
power.
what. Tell me where I'm wrong. And explain.
Where you're wrong is you don't know anything about these people. They could be right. There
What
could
people
be
who
a
believe in
higher
Santa
power.
Claus?
should be
Are they
Have you
delusional?
thought about that before?
Did you hear what
Yeah.
Mary
To be
said?
delusional is to believe in something
No.
in which there is
What did you say
overwhelming
about it?
evidence against.
I
So if
said,
you believe in something where the evidence is completely against it, then you're delusional. What evidence do you have that says that God does not exist? That
I'm not
you're
the one
delusional?
claiming that God exists. You are.
You just,
Everybody
you just
delusional
named it.
then is wrong. So you
Delusional.
used the wrong word.
No,
You called
I'm
it
asking
delusional.
We didn't make any claim yet. You
No,
claim that
no.
anyone who believes in a higher power is delusional, which means that there is no higher power. So you made the claim.
Belief.
What's your evidence that there is no higher power?
it's the belief that's delusional, not the person.
But what is to be
People who
delusional
believe
is to
in
believe something.
Santa Claus are believing, they're having a delusion. People who believe in
No, Santa
unicorns
Claus exists.
and actually believe
Mhm.
having delusion. People who believe
Santa
the
Claus
Easter
exists. He
Bunny.
might not be physical in this world, but he exists in our minds and in our imagination. That's not a delusion. If I said Santa Claus, you know
That's
exactly
what
what he
comes
looks
every-
like. You could describe
in
him.
December.
Do unicorns
I-
exist?
I think you all
In
know
our
that, buddy.
minds, yes.
Well, in your
You
mind,
can
but that's made
describe-
up.
You can but physically, no.
Everything in your
that's not
mind is
right.
imagination.
If you call people delusional, you gotta know what the definition of that word is.
No one
You
is
don't
calling
know
it.
what it is.
Purple Dolphin used the word, so now they're getting challenged.
People that believe it.
The belief
Now read what the
is a
definition of.
delusion. The people are
having a
not
false-
necessarily delusional. The belief is a delusion. Delusional is a diagnosis. So just because you believe in something that is a delusion doesn't make you delusional as a person. The belief itself
Okay,
is
are
in
you
fact
going
a
to-
delusion.
When you
There's
said
no
people
evidence.
who believe it are
Excuse
delusional.
me.
That's what he said.
Well,
Delusion is
I'm not him.
upon
I
the
didn't say
person,
that.
not upon the thing.
Well, we were talking to him.
Oh, sorry, and I recognize your voice.
Yeah, me too.
And I recognize yours too, Mary.
It's
Yeah.
nice to
It's
see
good-
you.
It's good to see you. Glad you came.
Yeah.
Same thing with Purple Dolphin. Glad you came as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So delusional means having false or unrealistic beliefs or opinions. So what is real? Is real imagining Santa Claus? Santa Claus? Is that real? You said it's real. Well, you're delusional now.
No, he's an imaginary figure. So in that,
It is in your
well,
mind. It's not real.
It's real.
No,
Now,
Santa
if it's
Claus
physical
comes, children
in
sit
this
in this
world, then I would say
You
no.
don't think Santa Claus, but it's real.
So what is real to you? Just so whatever you believe?
To me, what's real is what
What's
you have
what's
evidence
real
for.
to you might not be real to me.
Well, yeah, you're right about that. You're right about that. So what is real to me is things that you can test, you can see, you can touch, you can measure, you can see the consequences of it. Not something that you just claim is there, but you have nowhere to prove. You just say you gotta have faith. So if there's
Really?
proof that there's some some supernatural being telling you how to dress, how to do those things, is on you. Is not on me to prove. Now that we're
Is your
talking about
great
proof,
great 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 grandfather real?
it was real when he was alive.
How do you know?
I understand genetics.
Yeah, but you can't touch him, you can't see him, you can't test him. How do you know?
I understand genetics and biology. Do you?
Not to a large extent, but to a small degree, yes.
Okay, so
Human
you know what I'm
exists.
talking
You
about.
said that you believe things that you can see, touch, feel, and test.
No, I don't believe. No, I know he existed because I'm here. To be here, I had to have a father and a mother, and so on, so
Same
on,
thing
so
with
on.
this universe. I know God is real because it exists. This universe is here. I'm gonna use the same
Yeah.
logic that you just used.
Okay. Okay. What is the
This
logic?
universe to me is proof that God exists. Us
Okay.
being here is proof that God exists. That tree
So if I say
behind you
that-
being there is proof that God exists,
So if I say
from my
that,
perspective.
if I say that this world being here is proof that unicorns exist, I have exactly the same amount of evidence for that as you do to say that it's because God exists.
Well,
Maybe
the difference
how do
being
we know
is
they didn't
this.
exist?
What's the attributes
You
of
don't?
a unicorn as opposed to the attributes of God? We believe that God is an all-powerful
Yeah, the
being,
attributes,
a creator.
I'll tell you what the attributes are. The attributes for both of them is that they're fictional, that they are ideas created by human beings in their minds.
No, but what attributes, our attributes for God are very simple. He's an all-powerful
Kind of,
being, the creator of the heavens and the earth.
Sure.
So that's.
And unicorns
then
have a horn on their heads, and they're magical, and they look kind of like horses.
Okay. And do you believe that they physically exist, or is it an imaginary existence? It's either one of the two.
I believe that God and unicorns exist on the exact same plane, which is in people's imaginations.
So you look at life around you, and, you know, how did this get here? How did the universe come about? You don't ask these questions?
How could you?
You've never
Nope.
asked these type of questions?
People much smarter than I am had asked those questions and haven't
And
been
what
able
did
to
they
answer
conclude?
them. Haven't
What
been able
did
to
they
answer
conclude?
them.
They don't say God doesn't exist.
No, but they
You're
don't say
saying.
God exists either. There's
Well,
no
I agree.
evidence for, there's no evidence for
They say the
God.
probability for the fine tuning of the universe is an absurdity to think that it came from nothing. That's what they do say.
No scientist, no reputable scientist has ever said that it's an absurdity. It
So,
could be an
reputable-
absurdly large
Okay.
it could be an absurdly large probability. But the universe has been here for 14.5 billion years, so
Wait.
absurd things can happen in 14.5 billion years.
Like what? Like a universe coming into
Like
existence?
human beings evolve, like the animals and plants on this planet evolving, and that has only been for the last 4 billion years.
Like a single-celled organism becoming a fish, and then that fish becoming a turtle, and that turtle becoming a snake, and then the snake becomes a
No,
banana. And
it does not work
this
like
type
that.
of stuff
That's a
that- this
simplistic
type of
notion of
stuff that
evolution.
Yeah.
It's a simplistic notion of evolution, but
There's nothing fixed about evolution. There's no fixed idea when it comes to evolution. You do know that.
I'm not sure what you mean by
There's
fixed
no,
idea.
there's no fixed idea of evolution that we know for definite this transition to this, and we know for definite
No,
that
absolutely
transition
not,
to
because
that.
it wasn't leap,
Exactly.
evolution was not leaps.
There you
It
go.
was minor,
Maybe the flying
tiny
spaghetti
little
monster.
things.
Again, these are the assumptions without evidence.
No, they're not assumptions without evidence, there's absolutely
It is
evidence, there's a
assumption.
fossil record.
There's fossil records that go
And
against
there's
it.
missing things.
There is.
Now, you
And
have to
actually,
understand
just-
science to be able to assert that.
Oh, first of all, you can have macroevolution, yes, but for across species, there isn't the evidence.
That's true.
We should have millions and millions of fossil
That's
records, and we don't.
absolutely not true, there is,
Then where are the
there is
fossil records to
absolute
prove it?
scientific evidence.
Yeah.
There's no proof, there's evidence. That's how science works. Science doesn't look for truth. Science isn't coming up with proof. Science is coming up with theories based on evidence.
Yes.
We know how germs work, right? So
But David-
we know if somebody gets an infection, that's a germ, and we've been able to observe that, we've been able to measure that, we know what happens in general to most human bodies. So we have this thing called germ theory.
Okay.
We don't
Tell
say
me,
germ fact,
Mary,
but we
tell
still
me-
treat people. I'm not gonna allow
Mary,
you to keep
tell-
interrupting me. I'm gonna finish my statement, and then I
No,
will be
finish.
Let her
delighted to
finish.
talk to you.
go ahead.
We have germ theory, which is not proven,
Mm.
and it is not a
Mhm.
fact.
Mhm.
In science, we don't call
Mhm.
things facts. Measure.
I know how
Is
science
this what
works.
your
Yeah.
religion is all about?
Do you
Is
know
there something in the
people,
Quran
Mary,
that says you have to interrupt
Mary-
people?
Mary, first of all, the scientific
This
method.
is exactly
was
what I was
created-
talking about. It's not the religion, it's the implementation,
Mary-
it's what people do
Mary,
Mary,
the
you gotta let people
to
scientific
talk,
prove
too,
their
method.
point.
Mary,
Mary, first
Mary,
of all,
you
the
gotta let other
scientific,
people talk.
first of all, the way you're talking is very derogatory. You get PhD in how germs work. Yeah? The scientific method, what we have today is coming from Islam, the biology, the physics, the psychology, coming from Islam. This assumption you make is
Can you
why.
please move
Please now you
to the
tell me-
outside of the circle
Tell me
like
the
everybody else?
evolution,
Thank
the
you.
human being, what was the story? We started from the single cell, then what were we after that? What were we after that? Tell me the story. You don't know?
I'm done talking to you. I am not talking to
Thank you.
I can't.
Oh, no. Yeah,
You
thank
don't
you.
know. Say you don't know.
That's a
it's
good
okay.
question, Mary. Just say
She
you don't
can't.
know,
She
and
doesn't
we
know.
can move on. It's a very good question.
Are you asking me a question? Because I'll answer you.
Look,
I
let's don't be like
absolutely
that.
don't know. I absolutely don't know. No one watched life begin on the planet.
That's it.
We have
That's right.
seen Alright, you're a piece of work.
Where was God when my friends were being killed in Vietnam? Where was God when the buses were being blown up in the Middle East? Where is God when all the people are being murdered in the Middle East?
Can I
Good
respond to that?
question.
Yeah,
Good question.
How is that?
Yes, Donna.
That's not even a question, it's a statement.
It was a question. I asked, where was
Okay.
God when my friends were being killed in Vietnam? When I watched people die in Vietnam?
He
Where
was
was
receiving
God
their
when
calls.
people were being blown
Where
up?
was
Okay,
God
that's
when you
the
born?
second-
Preparing
Can I
kingdom for
respond?
them
Why
to
did you
come.
go to Vietnam?
That is what? Question.
Yes.
It's
So-
preparing
so
a place
Why
for
did you
them.
go to Vietnam in the first place?
Yeah, that's a good
go
question.
ahead, Donna.
So to expect God not to be anywhere is an incorrect assumption. God is everywhere. The fact that he doesn't intervene in what we do is the real thing we need to address. I think what you're trying to imply is why didn't God intervene and stop all the bad from happening? So if God would intervene in whatever we do, that would nullify the free will that he has given us, and then on the day of judgment, nobody will have, nobody can be blamed for what they did.
Okay.
right?
But it
But
wouldn't be any,
if,
in
if that
blowing
makes
up
sense,
buses in the name of religion.
again, you're making the same assumption here that for bad to happen, uh, we need to question God. We can't question God because He has given us the free will. Like your friends died in Vietnam because they got on the helicopters or the airplanes from your country. They had the free will to, and then they went all the way to Vietnam, and then they started attacking the people there, and then the people retaliated. So, like a lot of events took place. You can't just start off by saying that where were people when I was in the middle of a battle and my friends were dying. That's an inaccurate depiction of what happened. Now, had God wanted to intervene, He would have done it as soon as you and your friends took your first steps towards that airplane. He should have stopped you. Why doesn't He stop people from cheating on their taxes? That's the real question we need to ask. Because God has given us the free will to do whatever we wish. So, on the day of judgment, when every soul is accounted for whatever it did, it can be done so fairly. Otherwise, if God intervenes, then there is no test to differentiate who is worthy of eternal paradise and who isn't. So God is everywhere. He's watching from behind a veil. He will never intervene because if he does, then the test gets nullified. It's like, you sit in an exam and you expect the teacher to answer all of your questions. If a teacher would do that, or if an invigilator would do that, then there would be no point to the test.
So for you assuming that everybody's getting tested, how about a 2-year-old that dies from cancer? They were not tested. They didn't do anything.
No.
They just died, right?
Yes, so
In our
to
So
religion,
why
a child will go to
God
heaven.
gave them life then? Why?
So to respond to this statement, you're absolutely right. It doesn't make sense that a 2-year-old would be tested in such a way they don't even have the capacity to talk yet, or to think, or to take care of themselves.
I'm glad you came.
However, the religion of Islam, and I believe the other
Nice
to see
Islamic
you.
religions,
Yeah,
also.
and keep challenging us, because as Muslims, we're open to questions and you have a lot of good ones. So definitely keep challenging us.
I love, as you know, I love having open, respectful conversation. One thing I don't abide, two things I don't abide, people lying and people talking over each other. And sometimes people interrupt and that's, sometimes it's supportive, sometimes it's not, but when you talk over people,
Yeah, you definitely don't want the conversation to fall apart because we're not listening. Yeah,
exactly, and that's not how I roll, so.
yeah. Well, do you have any other, your questions, you really ask insightful questions in terms of, because you have a science background, correct? Yeah. Science is, this is what we say in terms of Islam, if I could just back up here. We believe that during the time of Moses came at the age of magic. Whoever did the greatest magic trick, the people would presume that person to be more truthful, you know. So when he cast his rod and his rod ate up the other rods, it showed the people that, hey, Moses must
He
have
was
come
the
with the
winner.
truth. He's telling
Yep.
the truth.
Well,
Right.
brother, would you like
Same
to
thing with Jesus, peace be
would
upon
you like
him.
to
We
move over
believe he
there
came
so
at
we can
the
continue
age of
the
miracle
discussion?
workers or
We
miracles.
don't talk
There are a
over
lot of miracle workers going
other
around
people.
doing, some types of miracles, and people were like, hey, that guy must be from God.
Okay, yeah.
Mhm.
I believe Prophet Muhammad came during the time of poetry and prose, where whoever was the most articulate, whoever, with whoever's speech could confound the other party, then that person came with the truth. So the Holy Quran is a book that we believe cannot be imitated. And there's a challenge in there. The Quran also gives a falsification test, which is, of course, that's what they do in science.
Mhm.
So it has 2 or 3 different falsification tests in there. If you believe this Quran is from any other source other than Allah, then produce a chapter like it. And there's another one that says the other falsification test is for I'll come back to it. But the
Yeah,
point
so
being
I get your point.
is that today though we live in the age of science and technology,
Mhm.
and So we believe what the science says. If science says it, then okay, it must be true, right? Or there must be some truth to it. So we believe that the Quran has science in the text. It's not a science book, though, but it speaks on points of science to convince not the people of his time. Like, for example, when the Quran says, do they not see that the heavens and the earth were joined together as a single unit? And we expanded it apart and we are still expanding it. That verse is not for the people of Prophet Muhammad's time. It doesn't
It's
convince
also
them.
not
It
the
means
Big
nothing.
Bang.
Well, I didn't say Big Bang, but that's where your mind
No,
went.
you didn't say that, but that has been asserted over and over again, that the Big
Correct.
Bang is outlined in the Quran because
So
of
the
this
fact,
passage, and it's clearly,
correct.
when you look at it in context, it's not.
Okay, let's see. Let's say it again. Okay, first of all, we do know what science says about the Big Bang, that there was a singularity. That's what it speaks about, a singularity.
You're getting down a rabbit hole. You're getting down the rabbit hole of a particular religion. And I don't know enough about Islam to have a conversation about Islam in particular.
Okay.
Fact
Right. So that's
is,
why I
there
just
is.
mentioned the verse.
I
just
wanted to go
mentioned
back
the
to what you were
verse.
right, but I wanted to go
Okay.
back to what you were saying about different religions appearing, right, for whatever reason. And your reasons are interesting, but the real reason that most religions evolved, came into being, is because some individuals wanted power and money. That's
I
the
don't think you
basis
can
of.
prove that, but yeah.
Well,
No,
that's
what can
suggested by
happen.
history.
It
That
can
is what
happen, but
history
that's not.
suggests. I'm not
Wait,
saying
and
that it is the
It
truth.
doesn't
Hold on.
happen.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that it's the truth.
Sorry.
I'm saying that this is what we have evidence for because this is what history suggests. Was I there? I was not there. But I do know that there is extra biblical evidence of how Christianity evolved, and it had a lot to do with power, money, very little to do with the sort of romantic ideals of wanting to be right and wanting to do good things. It really was about other people telling you what is right and what is a good thing, to keep control over people who were not behaving the way that leaders wanted them to behave. That's
Yeah, I can
universal
agree with
across
that.
most organized religions.
Paul even
No,
makes
see,
the
wait,
statement in the Bible
wait,
that
wait.
he robbed all those other churches.
I
He
cannot
makes the statement
agree
that
with
he
this.
went and took the tithes and he robbed them, but he's not going to rob this particular church. I forgot what church it is. He talks about the fact that he took all their money. It's in the Bible, you know. So no, I can
Oh,
agree with you when it comes to the Bible. But however, what I was discussing with you, Mary, was how different ages, like with the age of magic, the age of miracles, the age of
even the
poetry and
Renaissance.
prose, right? The age of, but today, in today's world, we live in the age of science and technology. That's the age in which we're in. And what I was pointing out to you is that I'm talking about a book. How could a illiterate man in the desert of Arabia, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, with barefoot sandals, goat herder, how did he come up with this information? It's found inside the Quran. There's scientific information that's in the Quran, and I can name a whole lot of other stuff. And what I'm saying to you is that as a Muslim, we believe that the Quran is going to take us up to the end time.
I know
So
that.
therefore, in the
That's
Quran,
fine.
there has to be, since we're in the age of science and technology, in order to convince us that live in today's world, like me, I was convinced more so through science in Islam, more so than anything else. Because I'm thinking to myself, how could a person who couldn't read or write his own name, come up with this kind of information? And, to me, I just think it has to be revelation.
So I
Especially
don't
if you
agree
can,
that we live in the age of science and technology. I believe we
okay,
live, because sure, we have science and technology, and we have lots more science and technology than anybody has ever had before us. but we also have more art, we also have more philosophy, we also have more, more of lots of things. It's not just
Yeah,
science and technology.
not just science and technology, but sure, we also have other things here as well. Um,
Like
I'm
poetry and
gonna
prose.
right. Well,
We
but
have
you do
more
know
poetry
there
and
was
prose now than we had in any other time in existence. If only because we have more human beings, and human beings are the ones who generate poetry and prose.
So if I may quickly interject, when you say you don't believe we're living in the age of science and technology, uh, historically we've always given names to whatever age human beings were at, like the Bronze Age, and then there were there were the Dark Ages. Like periodically, names were given to certain ages. And if you think science and technology doesn't affect the name that we currently are in, then what would you suggest? One name that would define the age that we're in.
The modern day, I mean, we live in now. Perhaps in the future, people will look back on what's happening today and they will name it, which is what we've done with all the ages before. The age isn't
Okay,
named
so
while it's happening. There weren't folks in the Bronze Age saying, hey, we live in the Bronze Age.
okay, so that's a good point. That's a good point. So, do you think there was no name for the time they were in, or could the people that, when they were in that time, they couldn't identify what the main source of their, generating wealth globally or improvement in, advancements were? Were they not even
Well,
able to identify that too?
you're talking about before, and I guess it depends on how far before, because it's only been very recent that we've been able to communicate with people who are half a planet away from us. So lots of things were evolving in different parts of the world at
No,
different
no, that's
times.
not what I mean.
It,
That's not what I mean.
Where
I
did you
think you
get this
misunderstood
that's
my
what
point.
information
that's what
from?
I
Just a
mean.
sec, just a second, brother.
That,
I
that's
think
what I
you
mean. You're
misunderstood.
making an assertion. You're
No,
making
but
an
you've
assertion
misunderstood
that
my point.
no,
You've
I understood
misunderstood
your
my point.
point.
I don't
I
think you, because you're
understand.
answering something else entirely. You're answering something else entirely. I don't think you have.
I'm
Let me
answering
repeat what I
I'm
said.
answering the question in the context that I understand the answer, which
Yes,
is the Bronze
and my
Age
point
only
is,
looks at
before
the
Madam,
you
Bronze Age
answer the
looks at a
question,
particular time, and it also
no,
looks
no,
at a
I understood
particular
that,
place.
sister. I've
you
understood
It
that.
don't
looks at
hear
a
What I'm
except
trying to
particular
yourself.
say,
place, not just a
just
particular time.
Zaraki, brother Zaraki, just a second, please. I'm trying to talk to her. Just one second.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I'm
so,
Well,
trying
you're
so,
trying to
to.
talk over
Okay.
me.
so, no, I'm not trying to talk over you. I
Well,
realize
you're
you
doing a
were
very good
answering
job
me.
without trying.
I'm not trying to talk over you. You were answering something that I said, but you were answering something that you thought I said, but I was meaning something else. Which when I saw you were doing, I tried to explain it, but then you thought that that was, me talking over you. So let me explain it again. When the people of their times, like the people in the Bronze Age or the Dark Ages or the, when the Industrial Revolution started in England, I'm not so good with the names. When they were in that time, like we are in the science and technology age right now, right? For the sake of discussion, were they able to identify the main catapult that was making them better from the people of the previous years, or were they not even able to identify that too, in your opinion?
Define they.
The people of that time, just like the people that we are, just like we are the people
Which
in our
people?
time.
The people living in North America?
Everybody. No, everybody.
See, everybody didn't know everybody. There was only a very small number of people in a very limited location that were
Okay.
doing the
So,
things that you're
so
talking about.
no, but they, despite that, people, for the most part, and I mean everybody, knew where they had to go for progress, whatever progress that was denoted to their specific time. That's always been the case with humans, always.
No, it hasn't.
Okay, then I think we're going to disagree.
So when something was being discovered in Egypt, how did people in South America know about that?
Discovery and progress are two different things. I don't see why you can make the correlation.
That doesn't really answer my question. You're talking about all of the people and what the people
Yes.
were experiencing at particular time. And what I'm saying is you're talking about a very small subset of people during a particular time in a particular place.
Okay, so uh, let's take the Bronze Age, for example, right? Because like that was, I think the Bronze Age came before the Copper Age, and then okay. So when human beings started making coins out of bronze, and like currency was developed globally, it started off somewhere specific first, which you are right, like the discovery example that you brought up. But then people identified the good that it could do, so collectively, all of the people from other places eventually gathered to the center, and they tried to incorporate the same methodology in their own uh, systems, whatever they had. Because it's just
No.
like the currency that we use, just like everybody wants to move to the United States these days. Like back in like 1500 years ago, 2000 years ago, for a good education, people would go to the Middle East because they had, especially Iraq and Baghdad, they were known to have places where you could have good education, where there were intellects, and the West, the European area, so to speak, was in the Dark Ages during that time. So what I'm trying to say is that collectively we are always able to identify uh, the times that we are in, and I know you disagree with that because you say we weren't even able to communicate, as quickly as we are able to now. But that still doesn't change the fact that people, even if a message that takes like a second right now to travel across the world, even if it took 6 months, people would know where to go. People would know where progress was, may it be
So
like the
your
Copper Age or the Bronze Age or whatever.
so your assertion that things like currency traveled across the world because they were a good idea is just completely not true. The reasons that things traveled across the world is because the people with the money and power conquered lands and people who didn't have money and power. It wasn't that somebody heard, oh, this is a great idea, we're going to also have currency. It's because the people with the money and power came over and took land and brought their lifestyle, their way of life, to other lands and other places. And when the people that they visited didn't like that, they had wars.
I think wars were, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think wars mostly happened because the people who went to other lands, they wanted to take over the resources.
And
That's not the same thing
bring,
as,
they wanted to own that land. They wanted to usurp that land and take it as their own for their own religion, for their own culture, for their own currency, for their own leadership, and for their own tax collecting in most cases.
okay, so when you say in most cases, you are clearly identifying an intent here, that this was the intent that they set out with, whatever country they were in, they had a certain intent that we're going to go over there and we're going to take over their land through hook or crook. Now, if
No,
uh,
no,
that
no,
was the
no,
intent
no,
for every,
nope,
oh,
nope.
okay,
In many cases, they didn't know if there were people there or not. They simply said, we're going to expand. We want more land, we want more resources, we want more, because
hmm,
that's what human nature is to acquire more, more, more. And when they got there and they discovered that there were people, sometimes bad things happened. In some cases, yes, they
yes.
did know that there were other people in those lands and they wanted those lands and they started, they planned a war and they started a war. In some cases, they simply went over and conquered people.
Yes. So again, coming back to what I was saying just now, the intent here, I think you clearly defined that the intent was to take over acquire more land, or if there were people they did not want anybody to stand in their way. That was the intent. So now let me ask you this: would it be fair to assume that every single tyrant or human being, for example, had the same intent? Could somebody have a different
Absolutely
intent?
not. Absolutely not.
Okay. Going back to what you know you were talking about earlier, and I tried to link it with that as best as I can. When we assume that in this time we are defined by science and technology, right? The times that we live in, like the
You
past
assume that.
50, 60. No, no, I agree. I knew
I
you
don't.
wouldn't agree with that. But
Right.
so again, because I wasn't able to finish my statement, right? If so, you don't agree with that. That is understood. What would you suggest? What if you had to give a name to this? The science and technology is something clear, like we are using it right now. I am in Pakistan, right, and you are somewhere in the States, and we're literally communicating because of it. So what if, and you don't agree that this is the best, name to give in the current age that we are? So what would be something that you would be comfortable with? What name would you give it?
I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I think that there's so much to the world now because we've been building and building and building. We still have bronze. We still have copper. Had science and technology for a long time. There's always been technology. A stick and fire is technology. So I
Okay,
don't think
so
we are,
okay,
I don't think that we are uniquely in a time of science and technology now when we weren't in a time of science and technology before. But we also
so you said
require
something really
water to
interesting.
survive. And if you didn't have water in Pakistan and I didn't have water in the United States, we wouldn't be alive. It doesn't mean that it's the time of water.
Okay, so you said something really interesting. You said a stick and a fire is technology. Clearly, we aren't talking about that though. When we bring up the words like the
That
Bronze Age or the Copper Age, copper was whenever it was discovered and invented, people realized that they were able to create electricity because of it. Now, before that was done, however long our history was, we were never able to make electricity. And this is what significantly changed the course of human history. After that time, after that era, same with the locomotive. When the locomotive was invented, our trade routes became shorter. We got to know each other better, and I mean globally, nothing has been as effective as the locomotive engine, like what it was discovered. So these things significantly change the course of human history. And now, if when we try to identify it with technology and we say, "Wouldn't you agree?" Like we're not even enforcing it, like because it's the obvious thing to identify, right? You have a problem with that, and you're saying you're going back to the first, like even before the first man or woman who invented the wheel, and you're saying like even that is technology and even this is, so everything in between is, so we
absolutely.
can't really call it, which is a generic statement. But if we had to pick something that would define the current era, what would you call it? It's a simple question.
I already said, I don't know because I wouldn't call it anything. I wouldn't necessarily have
Okay,
called the Bronze
I
Age
can.
if I were living in the Bronze Age. But the fact is, I'm very concerned about your definition of technology. You may be calling this the time of science and technology, but I'm going to reassert the fact that we have always had science and technology. What you're talking about is electricity and computers and space and the sort of nouveau science.
That's
You know,
technology.
we've always had science and we've always had a pulley is technology because a pulley didn't exist and somebody realized, oh, physics, and they put a pulley together and then they were able to do a significant amount of work with that pulley. That was technology. So if you're restricting the notion of technology to only things that have electricity, I'm going to call that specious because we have had technology for all of humanity.
Well, yeah,
But
humans are constantly evolving. I think earlier, though, Mary, you actually called this era the modern age. That's what you said
Because that's the
when
time I'm
first
living in.
asked.
It is modern,
Correct. So this
relative
is
to me, it is modern. It is
right.
the
So if this
now.
is the modern age for you, then it will always be the modern age for anybody who comes after us if they pick on that same point of view. And I
Correct.
think what Donut is trying to say here is that we clearly have other ages. We've had where we've identified, yes, looking retrospectively on the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, and to me earlier, I was talking about the age of magic, the age of miracles, the age of poetry and prose, and I finally came to the age of science and technology. I was talking about in the terms of the way people uh, took what others said as being truthful or not. So if you did the greatest magic trick back during the time of Moses, people would have believed that you were telling the truth. In the time of
Yes.
Jesus, if you did the greatest miracle, because there were a lot of miracle workers during the time of Jesus, peace be upon them, uh, those miracles convinced the people that they were true. Same thing with Prophet Muhammad, with poetry and prose during his era, peace be upon him. Nothing can replicate the Holy Quran. So therefore, the argument was quite clear that it must be true. Today, we don't go by magic and miracles. David Blaine could come here right now and do a trick, and none of us will think that it's real magic. But science and technology, people who are into science and technology in this era, people tend to give more weight to what they say because they're scientists, if you will. So that's what I meant. And then when I was talking about the Holy Quran, I brought it in, and you've already said that you don't know enough about it, and I can respect that. But there's a lot of, even though the Holy Quran is not a science book, but it touches on themes of science. To convince who? Not the people in Prophet Muhammad's time, but to convince us right now living in this world's age that Islam is true and that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was a true prophet. And some of those things, definitely, if you get a chance to, take a look at some of the scientific miracles in the Holy Quran. There's a pamphlet that's available that's really, it's a really short pamphlet. It's not a thick book.
But as you know, I'm really not interested specifically in the Quran or the Bible or the Torah or any other book or religion, Abrahamic or otherwise, because they are manufactured by human beings. I think they're very valuable as historical documents, and I think people who want to study how the human brain works and how ideas evolve in history, I think they're very valuable in that way. I don't necessarily agree with I like the romantic nature of your description of the ages, poetry and magic and all that. Certainly a perspective of a way to look at history. That's not how I look at history, but I like it. I don't espouse it. The point, the reason that I came here was to talk about religion and its validity or lack of validity, its origins or lack of origins, and how evidence is into that.
Right. That's why I'm asking you when I stated the verse about the heavens and the earth. When, the Quran says, do they not see that the heavens and the earth were joined together as a single unit? And we expanded it apart. And then there's a secondary verse to that says, and we are still expanding it. I mean, and I'm trying to get us to think, how likely is it that a man living in the desert who couldn't read or write his own name would come up with that type of a statement if it wasn't from a divine source?
He could make it up. I mean, there was poetry.
Yes,
There was
that's a good point.
creativity.
You bring up a really
Anybody
good
could
point.
make up anything.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
the assertion that I have heard about the heavens and earth and a tiny dot and it's growing and it's going to keep growing, and the assertion that I've heard is that is the idea of the Big Bang Theory. The place that falls down is, and if one believes in the Big Bang, that was 14.5 billion years ago. But for 10 billion years after that, the Earth didn't exist. So the Earth was not created at the same time that the Big Bang happened. The Earth actually grew out of space junk. There's there's evidence to demonstrate, physical evidence to demonstrate how the Earth grew because of magnetism and various other scientific um, processes that are very simple, magnetism and chemicals. So the Earth
But
didn't
let,
exist when the Big Bang
before we
happened.
before we like
We have no time.
move on to a different
Kevin
topic,
to
right?
be about
Let's go back to what you
all
said
good.
earlier. You said something really interesting. You could have made it up when talking about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, for him to make a statement like this,
So I'm just
that
listening to this. Yeah, yeah.
he could have made it up. You're right. Now, how would we verify this? Like this is a scientific question. I'm just trying to and work with me here. Like for somebody who genuinely wants to know the answer to this question, what would be the scientific way to verify if either he was being truthful or dishonest?
You can't.
Without okay, so if I give you a proposition that there, although like for 100% we can't, but if there is a way which would give us like 80 to 90% probability to get to a certain idea where we think where we come to some sort of conclusion, would you be able to entertain that or not at all?
It's it's a question without an answer because you can't. You can make
No, no,
something
that's what I
up that
said.
you claim. You can make something up that you claim verifies it 80 to 90%. But it doesn't.
No, no, no. That's
I've,
what I said. Here's an example of what I'm trying to say. So I tell you that the shirt that I'm wearing is gray, right? Now you can verify that because you can see the avatar that you can see the shirt. You can visually verify this. So what you know now is that I've spoken the truth. If I say a different color, you can verify that I have lied just now. It's like the most simplest method. Now then there's hearsay, that you hear something said about somebody else. You could verify that, through different methods. One of them would be to actually go and, verify that visually, just like the shirt example, or somebody who you know, trust to never lie, tells you the same thing. He affirms or she affirms or denies that thing. That could be another source of verification, would it not?
no.
Why
Because
not?
you're talking about a scale from like 0 to 100, and I'm talking about a binary or null.
I don't understand.
Either,
Can you
okay.
explain this?
So you know how a light switch works. Either it's on or it's off, right?
Okay.
So either something is verifiable or it is not verifiable. Either there is evidence for something or there is not evidence for something. And then, if there is evidence for something, and you evaluate that evidence, you find that the evidence is not pointing you towards truth or fact,
No, no, no. I
light
think
switch
you
is still off.
misunderstood again. Yeah, I know.
I
What
must
I'm
be
trying to
so
say,
stupid.
nobody's saying that. Nobody said that. So,
Well, I seem to
you know,
misunderstand everything that you say.
okay. So, with the light switch example, um, if somebody tells you that they invented a light switch that turns, you know, whatever, like it opens a door to a random house, how would you verify that? I'm asking, like, there's a verification, just because somebody, uses an example of, something that we use every single day, we can't just, we have to verify that, right? So, if somebody tells you, like the car example, the door example that I've just given you, how would you verify that?
Well, first I would write up a plan outlining all of the things that I was able to observe. So I would observe that there is a light switch. I would observe where it
So you
is. I would
physically
write
go
down
to
that.
the switch, right? You would physically go to the switch because I don't want to miss any single process. Like you've jumped a certain process and you assume that you have already. You did not mention how you went to the light switch. What was the, what were the attempts that were made? We need to go. We need to be thorough because otherwise we don't. This is why when religious books come in question, we as believers don't just say what we believe because this is something that we read. We've been thorough about this. We've,
You told me
looked
I
under
had a
every
light
rock.
switch. You told me I had a light switch. I started explaining what I was going to do, and then you started talking.
Okay, please
So
continue.
you don't really want to
I
hear what
apologize.
no, you don't want to hear what I would do. All you want to do is wait to talk. You don't want to listen.
No,
And
please
that's not the
continue.
kind
I
of conversation
apologize.
that I want to have.
I
I had this
apologize.
conversation with you. I had this conversation
Never
with you a
count out
couple of
deception.
weeks ago, and I had the same issue. You continually talked over me because you didn't want to hear anything I had to say. You had no problem listening to men and keeping quiet, but for some reason, whenever you talked to me or the other woman in the room, you just talked over us. I don't have any interest in having that kind of conversation.
Okay, so
I have a very good answer for you, and you are not going to get to hear it.
okay, so I respect your decision, and I again apologize if you felt that way. That was not my intention. However, I just want to add that I feel, and I genuinely feel like you are resorting to this because you don't have an answer to my question. This is what it feels like, and I'm going to end the discussion.
Well, I got another question for you, Mary. Because you guys
Hit
are talking
me.
about hearsay. Yeah, you guys are talking
No,
about
he was
hearsay.
talking about hearsay. He was talking about
Right.
hearsay.
So can hearsay be confirmed is kind of the question. That's kind of what I thought I heard he was trying to ask. Can hearsay be something that we can go out and scientifically, if you will, prove?
So the whole notion of hearsay is that it's not, um, it's of little to no value. Hearsay is it's demeaning a statement, right? So you say, there was a dog, Mary said that there was a dog over there, and somebody else says, you weren't there, you didn't see it. That's just hearsay. So it's minimizing the veracity of the statement.
You could take
Okay.
it further than that.
Can I ask
Look
this?
at the
Yeah,
fact
can
that
I
you can never,
ask
you
this
can
one-
never
just
count
one
out
last
deception.
question?
With anything,
one
you
last
can never
question
count out
here.
deception, no matter what you want to know. Can't. It's
Can I follow
impossible.
up real quick, Mary? Okay.
Sure.
So what if somebody said, just as your example, hey, there's a dog over there, I guess. Hey, there's a dog over there.
Somebody said there's a dog.
Hey, right, if somebody said to you, hey, there's a dog over there.
No,
Now-
that's not it. No, if they said to me, hey, Sean said that there's a dog over there.
Right.
So you're not asserting that there's a
Okay.
dog.
Right.
You're asserting that Sean said there's a dog.
Yes, yes. Okay, so let me go ahead and put the question this way. If somebody said to you, there's a dog over there, and then another person comes to you and say, hey, there's a dog over there, and you get 20 people that come to you that don't know each other, and they all say, hey, there's a dog over there, what would you believe? Even though you haven't been over there, what might you come to a decision about?
I'm glad that you asked the question that way, because you asked what would I believe, and I don't believe anything about facts. There are facts and there are beliefs, and beliefs have nothing to do with facts. So you're asking me, would I assume that there's a dog? Not necessarily. I would open my mind to the notion that there may be a dog, but I very much believe in trust but verify. So I have been in places where people have, I was on a university campus, and there were 300 people in a lecture hall. And the 300 people in the lecture hall believed there was a person with a gun who had come into the lecture hall. And they all believed it, and they all stampeded out of the room. There was never anybody with a gun in the lecture hall. Somebody came in with some Nerf ball or something. So the fact that 300 people believed that there was a gun and stampeded out of the lecture hall, and people got hurt, and the police came, and the whole bit, doesn't mean that there was a gun. In fact, there probably was not.
Right, okay, so let me ask you this. It's more probable. I mean, yeah, we can have the gun example. That happens like people yelling fire in a movie theater, right? But in terms of just people just simply coming and saying, hey, there's a dog over there, and you get you know, 50 people that don't know each other, completely disjointed, and they come to you and as they're passing by, they're telling you, hey, there's a dog over there. Is it more probable that there's a dog over there, or is it less probable?
I'm gonna go back to that binary. It's either true or it's not true, or it's, if there's either a dog, I'm not gonna say true or not true.